Welcome to the first episode of Basket Case 2022 off-season. If you like the episode, remember to rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps the podcast gain traction and ensures you can catch new episodes when they drop. Thank you so much for listening.
I have an opportunity to win going into the final round, but throughout the weekend, I just keep hearing, oh, Eagles on lead card, but he's doing well without his sidearm, but he's not at 100%. So that starts to become my reality. And will he ever get his sidearm back? And that's a heavy mental thing to digest when you're playing an event.
Welcome to Basket Case, the podcast where disc golfers tell you the stories of when their mental game had the power to make or break their rounds. Let's gain some experience, work on our brains, and hit some chains. This week features McMahon on injury and self-fulfilling narratives. Hear the play-by-play of winning the European Open and his strategies like books, breathwork, and a disc golf contract he reads before every round. Eagle, thank you so much. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast.
For sure. Excited to be on.
You're a two-time major champion. You've been playing over half your life. And I feel like with a name like Eagle, you had to be good at disc golf.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to put it. Disc golf wasn't even in mind when I was named that.
Really?
No,
Funny.
it was more or less my parents just kind of being hippies to a certain extent. They love the outdoors, and they didn't have a name for me when my dad said that they were gonna name me Eagle. They were like, "You're gonna name him what?" And it didn't really sit well temporarily. And same thing on my mom's side. My uncle's like, "It rhymes with evil," and so it definitely got backlash, but they decided to go with it anyway. And soon after, it stuck, and I don't think it could have been anything else. So I want to shout out to my parents for, I guess, setting me up for success early on with such a cool name. It's definitely grown on me. I've liked it pretty much all my own life, and yeah, here I am now.
I've always wondered, with the people who start out playing really young and then into adulthood, is there like a big difference from playing when you were a kid to playing when you're a teenager to playing when you're in your 20s?
Yeah, there's definitely or there's multiple paradigm shifts, I would say, because starting out, it was just something that I did for fun. I didn't really, I liked throwing a disc. I liked getting new discs because it almost felt like a toy, but I didn't care what my score was. I wanted to, throw far and make some big putts. But then, soon it became I was, competing for score. Then I was trying to beat my dad. Once I beat my dad, then I kind of awakened my interest to start actually caring about what my score was. And then, playing events, obviously, you want to win and compete well in those. And that's kind of the general evolution I found.
I think it would be great to talk about some of your struggles. What have you been a basket case about lately with your mental game?
I love it. I've been dealing with a bit of an injury, and that's kind of put me into a basket case mentality. And broadly speaking, that's really kind of affected how I perceive myself this year. I had a great season last year, and at literally the last event, just before it, I sublexed my shoulder, and I didn't know the severity of it. I did it, and I just figured, oh, it's at the end of the year. I just tweaked my shoulder pretty bad. But then
you'll have time to recover.
Exactly. And then during the off season, I did a lot of good work, and I got to throwing form, or a level where I could compete, but I didn't have my full capability, including my sidearm. And I tried to play the first two events of the year without it to a certain degree. And I did fairly well, but I kind of got my own way because I felt like, I wasn't at 100%, and I kind of
Mm.
like dictated how I played, and that was kind of the narrative on the field, put forth by my competitors or
Mm.
the
Mm-hmm.
commentators, and that can if you hear that, it's easy to say like stay above it, but you hear those things and it's in the back of your head. So like
Yeah, you can't ignore it. The more you try and push it away, the more it's gonna like stick in your head. Like the don't think about white elephants. And it's like all I can think about is that thing. As a pro, you're under such a microscope all the time. So yeah, people are gonna be commenting about what you yourself are going through and making
absolutely.
assumptions that then feeds into the perceptions you have of yourself.
Absolutely, because like going into the season, I'm thinking I don't need a sidearm. I'm fully capable without it. And then, as let's just use the Las Vegas Challenge for example, I'm on lead card. I'm like have an opportunity to win going into the final round, but just throughout the weekend, I just keep hearing, oh, Eagles on lead card, but he's doing well without his sidearm, but he's not at 100%. So that starts to become my reality. And people are giving me credit for how well I'm doing, but they're also saying like, will he ever get his sidearm back? Will he ever be the same? And that's kind of like a heavy mental thing to digest when you're playing an event. And then I just didn't find my groove the final round. There were certain holes that I saw, you know, uh, my card mates ripping sidearms on, getting birdies where I'm throwing backhands and getting pars. So like that
Like,
just that kind of reaffirmed that notion that was being put forth
hmm.
at the Las Vegas Challenge. And then afterwards, I decided, okay, I need to take a little time off, get an MRI on my shoulder, which I'm grateful for. It was a good learning
Hmm.
experience, but that kind of sent me into a little bit of you know, uh, some uncertainty, going into the season because I had all these events lined up. I had to withdraw from a lot of them. One of the greatest tips that I can give anybody is like, don't pay attention to what people say, but
Mm-hmm.
it creeps in to your life, like even if you want
Yeah,
to not hear it. So like
right.
my whole thing is how can I manage what people are saying or like
Hmm.
what's creeping into my life because people come say it to my face like
Hmm.
sorry about the forehand eagle and like little things like that just reaffirm
Mm-hmm.
my concept of
That belief.
that
Yeah.
belief and the idea that I am injured even if I'm not.
Yeah.
So it's
Even if
like
you're not, that's so interesting. Even just having you talk about LVC, and it's like you were feeling fine, but then people
mhm,
started talking about it, and then you start to notice, like that logical fallacy where it's like, yeah, if someone points it out, then you're gonna notice it too. And so it's like, yeah, then you notice it, and then it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, like you said, because maybe I should get it checked.
yeah, exactly. And whenever someone comes to me, it's like 99 times out of 100 it's going to be positive and they actually care, and I really appreciate the fact that they do care, but a lot of it's bringing that to the surface again, even if it is good intentions. Like sometimes hearing anything can like throw you into a basket case, and that kind of
Yes.
what I've been really struggling with is just like hearing people talk, whether it's good
Hmm.
or bad about me.
Yeah.
um
Well, because even if it's good, there's still, so I get this all the time about the disparity between like a woman's skill and a man's skill in disc golf. So I have a huge soapbox. I think it's like multi-layered. There's definitely a biological component, but I think a big part of it is like the cultural norms and the stories that people tell you your whole life as a woman that you aren't as
mhm,
fast and you aren't as strong. And like you said, it's like those things feed into the stories you believe about yourself, whether you like it or not. And even if someone's positive about it when, I outdrive them on a card or something and they're like, wow, you can throw so far. But it's
mhm,
like, that's a compliment. But the way that you said it outlines that there's a story that I'm not supposed to throw far.
yeah.
So even like them giving the positive reinforcement, it's still illustrating the picture of this like negative framework. You're obviously like still working through all those feelings this season. What is your kind of game plan moving forward?
I took some time off, and I, kept canceling events as I got closer to them. And, I got the stem cell treatment done. And I did a lot of research on stem cells. I did a lot of research on what surgery could entail, and for where I was at. And I got consultations by professionals, orthopedists, and I took upon myself to, make my own decision based on my body and what could get me back out there as soon as possible, but also, be a viable treatment. And stem cells seemed like a really good option. I found the best possible clinic in my area, and I got injected 6 weeks prior to the European Open. And talking with the doctor there, they said right around probably 4 or 5 weeks is when you should probably start like throwing at like 70% power, maybe even a little bit less, but really limit your throw count. It was a light at the end of the tunnel, but I knew there was a lot of work to be done. I started working with a new trainer who was willing to, give me a lot of like lighter exercises and ramp up and see where I was at, and really like pay attention to my own, movement patterns. What he saw he could help me with, that in combination with the stem cell therapy. I got to Europe, and before I wasn't even playing any disc golf, and then I was starting to throw backhand drives again, upwards of 80% power, over 500 feet, and that was really exciting. I got my confidence back, and I had with COVID, we haven't been to Europe since 2019, and it was really exciting to be able to get back to Finland, because I have some very fond memories of meeting friends over there, competing. It's a really fun country to visit, and I absolutely love the course. So going out there, it was just pure bliss to be out on the course. I was grateful to be playing. I felt like I had something to prove. The course set up well for me, and I've been putting a lot of work in, not necessarily on the disc golf course. I mean, other than 2 to 3 weeks leading up to the event. And I just allowed it all to happen, because I knew that if I didn't perform well, I'm still in Finland on a vacation, and no one expects you to even play good. So like I had like no pressure on myself.
Mhm.
So I could
That is
just,
like the secret. Don't put any expectations on yourself, and then you do great.
yeah, exactly. Like I definitely want to dive deeper into that, because that's something that I'm a basket case about. Like the European Open, lately, it's been a little bit of a double-edged sword for me. But I found my groove out there, and I enjoyed every minute of being out there. I enjoyed the fact that I was playing.
You could tell it was
Mhm.
so good. I mean, you had something to prove, and like, honey, you proved it. It was so good.
It was an amazing experience, and with disc golf, unfortunately and fortunately, we tie up a lot of self-worth with the sport. A lot of our play reflects on how good we feel coming off, and how confident we are as individuals.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That week in Europe, I came off the course every day feeling pretty confident, pretty good about myself, and then coming down the stretch, skip to the final round. It got close, and one little story I like to tell: I was going head to head with Paul Macbeth, and Paul Macbeth has won the European Open 5 times in a row. And like in my brain, I'm telling myself, well, he's going to win 6 times in a row, because why do I have any business winning a European Open this year when I haven't even played really? Shout out to a book I was listening to by Cameron Haynes. It's this bow hunter who is an ultra athlete, and his message is to keep hammering. And he has a lot of good value, just like of overcoming hardships, doing tough things to become a better version of yourself. I said he was essentially this nobody from Eugene, Oregon, got into like running. He's running the Boston Marathon, and he's feeling pretty confident. Lance Armstrong at the time was running the Boston Marathon. His goal was to beat Lance Armstrong, and he's telling his kids, he's telling all of his people back home, "Oh, my goal is to beat Lance." And at the time, Lance Armstrong was one of the heroes of the road before any like scandals or whatever.
How does he do it?
He started running, and he saw Lance Armstrong, started running with him. He ran with him for a little bit of time, and he started bouncing questions off him, like, "How you feeling?" And Lance Armstrong said, "I feel terrible. It's like, this is hard. They're running up this hill." And Cameron Haynes just thinks, wow, there's this larger than life person actually struggling. And he saw the humanity in him, and he realized, he's a person too. And, everyone puts him up on this huge pedestal as one of the, basically a superhuman that almost no one can achieve that level, but he's right there running with him, pacing with him. And Cameron Hames starts feeling good and he passes Lance Armstrong and beats him. I heard that right before the European Open, and like I was just thinking to myself, why not? Why do I have
Yeah.
to lose to Paul Macbeth? It didn't really hit me till like hole 15. I was just trying to keep pace. Once hole 15 of the final round came, there was 4 holes left and I was up by 1 stroke, and I just realized
Mm-hmm.
this is almost over. If I birdie out, I control my destiny. I didn't birdie out, but I
Yeah.
matched Paul hole 17. We were tied. He throws out of bounds, and I was able to play for par to be up 1. And I just figured, hole 18, get a birdie and you win. And I was able to execute under
Ugh,
pressure, a
so
lot of
good.
deep breaths, and that was definitely one of the most amazing moments in my life so far. Just to rise to that occasion was a, a huge mental win for me.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
And throwing lefty. I think that was the other thing that was so amazing about that tournament and that win and the way you showed up was, I mean, everybody's kind of tried throwing with their left sometimes. Like I bat left-handed and I shoot left-handed, and I've thrown left-handed ever here and there, but is that something you had in your back pocket that you'd been kind of working on here or there, or was it new?
I definitely trying to work on it because the idea of like a supplement to my forehand, that seems like the best thing to do. So a lot of the rounds I played when I was recovering from the stem cell injection, and prior to that, I was throwing left-handed, just because it was allowed me to get on the course. And I realized, okay, wow, I saw a lot of improvement really fast in the shot. Anytime I could swing something really wide and not think about more like the technical side of it, that's when I feel more comfortable throwing left-handed. Just as high a percentage if I were to throw left-handed compared to a little turnover backhand. And there was something in my head telling me like, if I execute this right, people are going to talk about it. So I decided to do that.
Right.
I love playing. I love competing. There are some parts of being on tour that are extremely draining, and a lot of that has to do with travel, not sleeping in your own bed. I love my fans. I love what they do for me, but I'm an introvert. So, if you watch somebody on YouTube or use someone as entertainment to a certain degree and you see
Yeah,
them
if you
in
know
real
who they
life,
are and you've never met them before, then
then you're going
yes,
to be
like
like,
they're famous.
if you see them in real life, you're going to be like, whoa, it's that guy.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
you're
I've
probably
never
going to want
seen
to go
him in
talk.
the flesh.
And you're probably
Yeah.
going to want to go talk to him. And like for you, it's this fresh experience, but for them, it's
Mhm.
like they've done that, you know, 10 times today. And like, it's a part of the deal. And I appreciate everyone. And, without essentially the fans of disc golf, like all the pros are nothing. And, I am living my dream life, my dream job. So I don't want it to sound like I'm ungrateful. I'm someone who really likes my own space and likes my own head, to get my own
Yeah.
zone.
We will have more with Eagle after a quick word from our Disc Golf Basket Case pod sponsors. Stay with us. If you're listening to Basket Case, you will likely be getting some new disc golf gear soon. Some of my favorite discs I've owned I found at infinitediscstour.com. They have pictures of every disc, so you can find a disc that has good vibes and know exactly what you're getting. They carry basically every retailer, so that obscure favorite that just went swimming could be replaced after all. You can also sell them your used or new discs that don't work for your game before you throw them in the water, so someone else can. If you're a TD, their payout and sponsorship options can streamline the whole process for you and allow your winners to get what they want. They do player packs and trophies too. Check out what they can do by going to infinitediscstour.com. That's infinitediscstour.com. Wildpack Sports wants to help people get outdoors and thrive through adventure, sport, and mindfulness. If you're looking for more control or stamina in stressful situations, their mindfulness sessions can help you develop habits to use on and off the course. Whether you're staring down a 30-footer for the win or surviving a trip to the grocery store with your kids, a lesson on breathwork, mindfulness, or a cold plunge can give you the tools you need to thrive. Sessions can be in person or virtual, so get started today by going to wildpacksports.com. Wildpack Sports, control the moment, control the outcome.
What are some of your strategies that you've learned? Any tips and tricks that you have for like flexing that mental muscle?
The easiest thing to do to move your needle forward is to do tough things and push yourself off the course with the thought in mind that it's going to better yourself on the disc golf course. I read this book called Chasing Excellence. He's a CrossFit coach, and his whole mentality is strong character makes better athletes. So if you can become the best version of yourself, that's going to translate to all facets of your life.
Your mental game doesn't start once you start your round. It's the same of taking care of your physical. Like, you are eating healthy and getting enough sleep, and it's the same thing with your mental game of like making sure that you feel life is in order so that when you come to your round, you can get into that mindset and not have these big things weighing you down.
Yeah, exactly. Pushing yourself in some capacity outside of disc golf. I did something kind of off the wall. I remember when I won the 2018 Beaver State Fling, I had like a little bit of a slump. My game wasn't exactly where I want it to be. And then I remember just doing like a 13-mile run,
Oh my gosh.
before. And that was kind of like, it was kind of like a shell shock. It just kind of got my head in check and it gave me that sense of accomplishment. And, it doesn't have to be a 13-mile run. It can just be any sort of win or small win in your life. But the next bullet point is do the things that you enjoy and find the line between those two, because if you keep pushing yourself, you could go crazy a little bit too. So you also have to take a step back and do the things you like. Essentially, be kind to yourself. One thing at Worlds and Colorado State's, the tournament that I saw you at, I noticed my self-talk was very poor. Like if you're talking to someone, you would not say you suck. You would not say that. If people heard what I sounded like at Colorado State's, they'd probably be terrified. I'm not going to say what some of the stuff I was saying to myself, but I caught myself after the round. Like the first two rounds, I looked myself in the mirror essentially and said, "What are you doing? Why are you being so mean to yourself?"
Yeah, stop being so mean to me.
And it's like, you got into this sport for fun and enjoyment and connection.
And you play the best when you're having fun.
You have to take gratitude and remember what's important and have enjoyment in what you're doing. That's first and foremost. I think that should be at the top of the list, and then everything's kind of a trickle down effect from there.
One of my absolute favorite quotes of yours ever is the time the mic caught you saying, "Are you afraid of life?" to yourself. Can you talk about that situation and what was going on in your mind?
Yeah, the "Are you afraid of life" was from the last year's Portland Open. I wasn't putting all that well, and I just had like this 50-footer on like hole 16 or whatever. I felt like I could have gave it a good run. It was uphill. There was nothing to really worry about, and like I essentially just laid it up without even with the intention to run it. And I was just frustrated, and it just slipped out. I was mic'd up. Joe Miz used to do mic'd up rounds. I don't think they do it anymore, but they got a good nugget out of it. It was me saying, "Are you afraid of life?" And I think what was going through my head is like, why are you afraid to succeed? Why are you afraid to be good? Like, run the putt, and if you hit the cage, if you give it a good run, you're not going to be that disappointed because you gave it your best shot. And that in that instance, I just felt like it wasn't what I should have done. Like my capabilities were a lot higher in that instance, and I I let myself down to a certain degree.
Yeah, well, and maybe that one stuck with me so much because I am someone who does the same thing. I miss low, and it's just the worst feeling to miss a putt low, especially one you
Mhm,
know that you can hit. It's like, seriously, what was stopping me? Like, why am I afraid to just
mhm.
succeed and like go for it?
Yeah, but then I think about that when I airball putts high, and then I'm like, you should have missed low.
You should have been more
You could
afraid of life.
you could have got your par. It's a
Um,
fine line. Like
it's a fine line.
this is the kind of the age old question I ask myself, whether you care or you don't care. And framing it like that is way too general. But I think a lot of people can say that they've had their best rounds when they quote don't care. Tying that into European Open, it's not that you don't care. You're not attached to results. You're genuinely in the moment. You're synced up with your own rhythm, and I like to think that you kind of don't care. I've also tapped into that a little too much, been a little bit apathetic, and that's not what you want because then you're just going out there, you're throwing shots, and then you don't have the intention. What I like to tell myself is I'm going to go out, I'm going to leave it to the wind, but I'm going to make sure I put full intention into each shot, and then as soon as
I like
I
that.
release, then that's I did my best. And that's kind of like the flow I try to find.
If you are in a round and something bad happens, are there things that you do to kind of like right the ship?
The easiest thing for me to do is focus on my breathing, breath work. Obviously, it's an effective method because probably from as long as you can remember, you've heard people telling you to take a deep breath when you're stressed and things are
Yep.
going crazy. So
It's a classic for a reason.
there's a few different types of breathing methods. Wim Hof can essentially be like a coffee breathing method. So it's going to get you like amped up, ready to go. And usually the tempo for Wim Hof, you're breathing in and then breathing kind of halfway out for about
It's more in than out.
thir-
Uh-huh.
30 times at a pretty good pace. And then you're doing a breath hold for as long as you can until you feel like the need to breathe. And then you breathe in, hold for about 10 seconds, and then exhale. And then you can repeat that cycle for anywhere from, 1 to 5 times. And that's, I like to do that in the morning to kind of get me going, to get energized. But for on the disc golf course, you want a more of like a water or a whiskey type breath. And a water type breath is kind of like think about drinking water. That's going to be like your consistent drink that you're consuming throughout the day, and that's like a box breathing method. So you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold for another 4 seconds, and then repeat that process. And that can really kind of calm you down and bring you back into more of a sympathetic state for your nervous system. And if you get a pretty bad break or something's not going your way, then you want more of like a whiskey style breathing that's going to relax you. And a good breathing technique for that is you breathe in slow for about 4 seconds, you hold for 7 seconds, and then exhale for 8 seconds. And that's really good to do before bed, or if you're in a parasympathetic state, which your nervous system, it means you hit a tree, you got a bad roll away, then that can be a really powerful method. So I definitely think about those breathing methods when I'm out on the course. When I've had my best moments, it's usually when I go back to my breath work and I really focus myself in the moment. And there's some of the most powerful grounding exercises that I have for my disc golf game and especially for my mental game.
Are there things that you do before a round to kind of get you in the mindset for peak performance?
I like to wake up not too early, but not too late. Start some movement, start some breath work, usually like a Wim Hof style to get me going. Good meal. I think nutrition is everything. How you feel your body is going to be important for what you get out of your body. If you have crappy food, then you're probably going to have a crappy round, in my opinion. I mean, there's exceptions to every rule, but I'm doing it for the longevity. I want to be good for as long as I can. So I feel like finding something good is crucially important. Then getting to the course, start my routine, usually disc golf strong warm up, I'll even do some breath work before my warm up to get me in the mindset. You see a trend here, a lot of breath work.
Yeah, I never knew. That's
And
interesting.
usually I have like this contract I made for myself that I like to read right before I start my round. It kind of reminds me how to
Oh
be,
my
and
gosh, I love that.
I kind of read through it, and it's in quick summary, it's like you put in all this work, you lay out the type of person you want to be. You want to be kind, you want to be focused, you want to concentrate on what's important to you, and then going out, it's not everything, but you're going to do your best, like just a general sense of like motivation, but also realizing like that disc golf's not everything, but it's also what you do, and you should go do it good. I usually read that, but I've read it so many times that before European Open, I said, I'm sick of reading this. It's actually making me angry. So I didn't read it for European Open. And there was something empowering to not doing that, that
Oh my god.
made me do well. And then I just said, okay, I'm not going to read at Worlds. And then I started playing bad. And then at States, I said, okay, I'm going to start reading it again.
Oh no,
So
you
then,
jinxed it.
so I guess you could say I'm a little bit of basket case about my own contract that I read myself.
A contract. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I actually genuinely want to do that for myself as well. Just because, yeah, you found these little things that, have helped you play. For me, it's like sometimes thinking about my daughter and showing her like a strong role model and, yeah, all the things that you've been through, the story of like how amazing you are.
This is me talking how like, training and the physical aspect ties so deeply into the mental side. I went to Switzerland early 2018 before I'd say I had any like major successes in disc golf. And for a month, I trained with Simon Lazat alongside a coach named Andy Gerich, as well as his wife Irene, and they kind of transformed the way I thought about everything because we were training every day. They were giving us homework on like exercise science, and they had us like write out our goals, and we had to do like presentations. It was crazy, but like one of my tasks was to make this contract, and I wrote it out. One of my homework reviews, he read it, and he said, I want you to sign this contract, and I'm going to sign it too. So he knows about this contract, and like the fact that I co-signed with him, it gives me like a certain sense of accountability. Some of these feelings are like something you kind of be embarrassed to go share with someone. So like the fact that someone read it and signed off on it, I think that's really powerful because you're going to be held accountable, and you're going to really think about it when you're reading this contract because someone else
It's
knows.
not just for you. Yeah, I know. They say that about like goal setting. The first thing,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to accomplish a goal, is to like tell someone else, tell your family, tell your significant other so that they actually hold you to it. That's so interesting. Oh my gosh. Disc golf homework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that was it was so cool because like I felt like that was something that not a lot of people did. And something that empowers me is knowing that I'm doing stuff that other people aren't. I feel like that's something that kind of helps me give the notion that I'm getting an edge. So like the fact
Yeah,
that I,
totally.
went to Switzerland, trained, and like made a contract for myself and read it before a round, like it's worked for me. I've had pretty much every good moment, good finish I've ever had, like winning a tournament, reading this contract, other than the European Open. I am constantly evolving my perception of how I see myself in disc golf too. I love disc golf in a different way than how I started. Like with the one thing is I love watching the disc fly. That's what keeps everything
Me
that's
too.
what
It's,
keeps everything going. But
yeah.
my goals in on disc golf and what I want to see for myself is constantly changing, and how I go about training for disc golf, how I see disc golf as my job. Like so many things play a factor, but I think it's pretty cool that after 15 years I still love it in the same way, but in also so many different ways.
What are some of the strengths that you feel like you've learned from going through some of the struggles that you've been in?
It's the toughest thing to do, to frame a failure as something that's going to move you forward. But the most powerful change comes from the worst moments. Australian Open 2017, when I was leading the tournament for 71 holes and then lost on the 72nd hole to Ricky Wysocki, like my world was absolutely crushed. And I felt like I hit rock bottom for a short period of time. I kept that in my back pocket. That failure fueled me, and it's what pushed me forward. It's great to win, and winning is an absolute reward for your struggles, but there's not a ton to learn when you win. Winning European Open, I said I'd talk a little bit about this. It is a bit of a double-edged sword, because when you're at the top of the world, you are like, where do I go from here? Like, you have a formula that you can recreate, and you usually do, but it's hard to keep that momentum rolling. When you fail,
Yeah.
you know it's like it's telling you exactly what you did wrong.
Yeah, you still have a purpose and a
Uh-huh.
goal.
I mean, it tells you exactly what you did wrong, and like taking full accountability, looking yourself in the mirror, and being critical of yourself, I think is important. Like, being kind but critical. You know, make a list,
Yep,
journal,
100%.
make a list, journal, see what you did wrong, and acknowledge that. And if you can acknowledge it and then create strategies to overcome that, even if it's just one thing at a time, you're probably going to come back. Anything you take track of is likely to improve. You just have to take small steps and let it compound. Cliche, learn from your mistakes.
I love the be kind to yourself, but also be critical. Noticing that I didn't live up to my own expectations, even though I know I can. And
Mhm.
next time I'm going to push it even further so that I do. I know that's something that people look for in the mentality of athletes as well. Like, you have to have enough passion and skin in the game to be angry about it. And sometimes that like anger is just a manifestation of like how much you care about it. And you can't get better unless you care. So if you're just going to laugh it off and say like, well, I had fun, I played my best, it's like, that's great, but you're never going to improve as fast as somebody who's angry about it and wants to fix it.
Yeah, 100%. I remember one audiobook I listened to. It was called Winning. It's by Tim Grover, who was a coach of Michael Jordan. One thing he said is, like, after a poor performance, you don't feel good. You want to feel those feelings. People want to sugarcoat, like, don't worry about it. It's okay. And it's like, that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear that it's not okay. Like, you want that fire to be lit under you. You want to be unhappy, but it's for how long and what you do with that. Cultivate that fire so it can not burn you, but it can cook your food. I mean, I could talk about the mental side for a long time.
I know, it's so fun.
It's probably one of the most interesting aspects of the sport for me nowadays, because obviously throwing the disc technique and, like, talking about new discs, like, that's all really fun. But I've done that for 15 years, and the mental side is the most elusive and the hardest to figure out. I don't even know if you can figure it out.
I know. Well, it's so, like we've talked about, it's so individual, person to person. But like, there are core themes that come up, but I just don't feel like we talk about it enough, especially because when you get to the level that you're at, most people have the skills to win a championship. Like, everyone who ends up in the top 10 had the physical skills to do it. And it's not about the physical skills. At the end of the day, it's about who can master themselves in a way to get it done.
Everyone is different, and I think being the best version of yourself is what's going to move your needle forward. One thing I get a lot of pressure from is to be like a Ricky, be like a Paul, because I'd say a lot of times I'm in a similar conversation. Obviously, those guys are veterans and they've been doing it longer than I have, but I've definitely achieved some things similar to them. And some people expect me to keep doing that and have that mentality, but I don't feel like I have that killer drive to win like them sometimes. Like, obviously I want to win, but the way I go about it is more of like a stoic philosophy, focusing on what I can control. And if I put everything in place and do my best, then just by default, I will win. So like that's more of my mentality, and that's what I found to be the most successful for me. For those listenings, I think finding what drives you. If you're a Paul or a Ricky that you thrive on the pressure and want to go for the win, and you're that kind of cutthroat to style athlete,
Yeah, that
then
killer instinct.
go for it. But if not, then like
Yeah.
don't feel pressure. Like there's other ways for you to get it done in your own way.
I love that so much. And I don't think people have really talked about that, of like, yeah, the kind of archetypes that you can have that be your motivation to win.
Like I've kind of diagnosed myself as a little bit more manic than other people on the course. Yeah, definitely a little bit more on the emotional side, and I realize that. So I combat that with a lot of breath work, and I really like to go into the kind of more nitty gritty and figure out how I can be less like that and manage it. And
Yeah.
I'm still far away, but I have techniques now that help me, and it's okay to feel negative and not so
yeah.
great, but it's how you acknowledge them and how long you linger in that mentality.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you can feel that way but then snap out of it pretty quick, I think
Mhm.
that's the most important thing.
I'm glad that you're managing your passion, but like, ooh, that's the secret sauce. So keep it coming.
Eagle, thank you so much for talking with me and sharing your brain with us.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
If you want to connect with Eagle, he's on Instagram at Eagle_WMCM. And be sure to check out his merch and discs at Discmania. We have a link to it in the show notes.
Plus, if something from Eagle's stories resonated with you, or if you have had a similar experience, whether harrowing or hilarious, we want to hear it. Next week, we will drop our Eagle Minisode with an in-depth look at the psychology behind his experiences and read some listener submissions. That could be you. Just send your comment or story to discgolfbasketcase@gmail.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. I am not a mental health professional or a sports psychologist. Opinions expressed by guests on the show are their own and don't necessarily represent my views. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, no guts, no glory, no brains, no chains. Goodbye.